Cofield and Company, our national college football insider, Michael Felder, is up with us. I'm curious on this one because once the season is over, and I know you like breaking down games and talking about film and some of the stuff around college football, do you hate what's going on right now? Because I freaking love it. We've got news, we've got chaos, we've got question marks. What do you think about the new age of college football here where we're going to be busy probably through May?
Yeah, I mean, I like staying busy. I like getting paid. But the reality for me is it's a different world, right? Like it's harder. You got to work harder. You got to find out more stuff. Like you got to look at guys that entered the portal, guys that have committed to schools versus where you expect guys to go. And there's a window there. And then you throw in the other windows of like what happens after spring. So like, oh, and by the way, there's the NFL draft that I have to cover. So we have this other part of it. And so it's going to be, by the way, also the coaching carousel and the dominoes that fall when you take a coach from Washington and put him at Alabama, then you take the Arizona coach and put him at Washington, and then everything that happens from them. And it's not just head coaches, it's whole staffs. And I think about that a lot. I think, honestly, the biggest thing I think about with respect to that is their families, right? Like if you're a wide receivers coach, I got a friend, she's married to a running backs coach, right? And she's lived in 6 places in the last 7 years. And it's just like move. And they got a 6-year-old kid. That kid's been in a bunch of different schools and different preschools. And it's basically it's like being a military brat, basically, where you go where your dad goes and then you go from there. So that's the part I think about. But I mean, we're looking at Isaiah Bond leaving Alabama to go to Texas. We're looking at Judkins just left Ole Miss. Like we're looking at all these things, and it's like, yeah, it's busy time. And Aiden Childs leaving Oregon State because Jonathan Smith left Oregon State to go to Michigan State. So he goes with him. Childs goes with him to go to Michigan State. And you see these dominoes fall. I mean, Dante Moore. If you would let me ask you this, Cofield, if someone would have told you that Dante Moore would leave UCLA, you would have been like, no, he's supposed to be like the future, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So it's
he goes further north and west to the hinterlands in Oregon to be the backup. So that's a weird one. Let's talk about the carousel. Let's start at the top that started getting this whole thing moving, and that is Kalen DeBoer to Alabama.
Yep.
Is he going to have a Southern culture issue being the head coach at Alabama?
I don't think so. And obviously, like we're getting out, I'm trying to get because here's the thing. I don't think Lane Kiffin has had a Southern culture issue at Ole Miss. I don't think that I think Mike Leach had a little bit of one when he was RIP, but when he was at Mississippi State. But I think DeBoer's just a football coach, and he likes coaching football. Brian Kelly had kind of like the thing that I know that DeBoer isn't going to do is what Brian Kelly did.
Don't do that. Go ahead and do it. Say it.
He's not gonna do what Brian Kelly did, which is like put on a fake accent and like
the family, whatever that was. I did it horribly, just like he did.
Yeah, so did he.
Yes.
But yeah, it's just I don't think he's going to do that. He's in there to coach football and make kids get better, and it'll be interesting because obviously Alabama is losing Caleb Downs. They lose Caden Proctor. They lost a couple other guys, Isaiah Bond, who I already mentioned. So he's going to have to work to earn the trust of this team, and that's the part I worry about more. It's less the culture, less what's the word I'm looking for? It's less about Southern versus Northern or Pacific Northwest versus the Southeast. It's more these kids signed up to play for Nick Saban. Mm-hmm. That's who they signed up to play for. In December, those kids signed up to play for Nick Saban. These guys signed up to play for Nick Saban. They're not getting Nick Saban. They're getting the guy who just lost the national championship. I think that Saban, he lost 2 national championships, I think, but he won 6 or 7. Like, what are we doing? Like, it's a completely different world. So that's the part where he's going to have to recruit his own team. He's going to have to win these guys over with, he's going to have to just, honestly, I think you can't say it twice in one sentence, Michael. Good grief. He's going to have to be honest with these kids.
Yeah.
He's going to have to be open with them. He's going to have to show more of himself than most coaches probably do. He's going to have to show more of himself to these guys to let them know that their futures are in his hand, but he's going to take care of them.
Yeah, I find it fascinating when kids leave because on one hand, I agree with you. If you signed up to work with a certain boss and that boss is gone, you're like, yeah, I don't want to be here. Maybe there's a more familiar spot where, someone finished second or third in recruiting and and you go there. Let's talk about the guys who are leaving first. Like Proctor's fascinating. I mean, he's just a monstrous human being.
Yes.
And I saw that Iowa might be in the running to get him. And I'm just thinking to myself, you're going to leave the winning at Alabama for Iowa that's really struggled in offense. Now, Iowa does produce a lot of offensive linemen in the NFL. I don't think this kid has to worry about that, though. I think, unless he gets injured, he's a shoo-in to go to the NFL. What do you think about the guys who are taking a risk by leaving what has been an incredible winning program in Alabama? Because I will point out, another offensive lineman said, I'm not leaving here. My legacy started here. I'm building my legacy here.
Right. So here's what I'm going to say. Caleb Downs, obviously, safety. He's going from Alabama to Georgia. Okay, I think he's going to be fine. But to get to your point, Caden Proctor, I think it's a matter of, kind of like the idea that styles make fights. And he might be worried that DeBoer's style, when you look at it, I know they won the offensive line. They won the offensive line award. Washington's offensive line won the offensive line award, but they don't play the same style as Alabama, right? So Iowa does. They want to get heavy on you, lean on you, push you around, be physical, be big. Same thing with Georgia, same thing with Wisconsin. And so he's like, you know what? I don't want to be a shield blocker who's, playing patty cake. I want to be out there running guys down. And it's the same. Like, that's why he didn't go to Clemson, right? Because Clemson, we expect to have an uptick this year, but he didn't go to Clemson. Why did he go here? He's going to Iowa because they play that brand of football, that tough brand of football. And as you mentioned, consistently put guys into the NFL. Even if, Iowa can go 5-7 and have a tight end and an offensive tackle or a guard get picked in the first round. The winning isn't the point for those positions. The point is that you polish your skills and get them done. And then we flip over to Isaiah Bond. And I think that, again, styles make fights. And I think Isaiah Bond is someone who's like, I want to play for Sark. I don't want to learn a bunch of new stuff. I'm going to play for Sark. And that's an interesting one to me because it's not like he played for Sark for a long time. So he's going to figure something out, but I think it probably feels a little bit more familiar. So it's very interesting because let's not forget, Georgia's got guys that are leaving as well. AJ Harris is taking off, a guy that played corner for them. He's going to Penn State, where I think he's probably interested in a little more playing time, a little different system. You look at, oh my goodness, now I can't, Tennessee. And Tennessee has Tyler Brown. Tyler Brown is a guy that's an edge rusher that they could use. And he's going to Louisville. Why? Because Louisville, they play a lot more stand-up sets and they go out and make plays. So Tyler Barron is a guy that's like, I want to stand up. I want to do this. Let's go do that. Again, I do think that styles really are important. And what people don't think about all the time and what people don't realize. So I'll go step by step. High school football has the smallest amount of data points for recruiting. If you're a really good high school football team, you might play 14 games in a season. If you're a really good player, maybe you play, hang on, let me get the calculator. If you're really good and you start as a freshman, that's 14 times 4, that's 56 games, right? So you get 56 games. Basketball teams play AAU teams they can play 56 games in 2 weeks. Baseball, we know baseball is going to go crazy. Those guys play 100 games in the summertime. Right. So you get to watch them, and that doesn't even include their high school seasons. Football, we're looking at 56 tops. If your team loses in the playoffs, if you're not on a very good football team, you get to play 10 games that year or 11 games that year. Fewer and fewer. But what we don't talk about, and this is the next point for me, these guys do build relationships. And so as I talked about at the top, where we have coaches moving around, not just head coaches, but positional coaches, these guys have maintained relationships. And it's way easier now than it used to be because you have Twitter, you have their Instagram, you have their cell phone number. And so what we're seeing are, this guy recruited me and I liked him. You know what? Let me reach out to him and see what's going on. Or this guy left from this school to go to this school, whether he left my school to go to this school or he left this school to go to that school. And I want to get out of where I am, I can go to that school. I just text him and let him know I'm interested. And then he can talk to me. So it's a real kind of intricate network of small data points, coaches, and contacts. Especially think about this. A GA that picks you up from the airport and you hit it off with, what if he gets it? What if like if the GA, when I went to visit Wake Forest and the GA that showed me around, what if he gets a defensive back's job somewhere else. And he and I really hit it off. And I got his context, and I know he needs help, and I know he wants to make himself look good. So how can he make himself look good? One, bringing in a guy that's going to be an good grief. Why am I struggling with this word? Contributor. And he's also going to be able to have success on the field. So that all those things kind of work in concert. So it's really, really, it's been really interesting to see how this shakes itself out.
Michael Felder with a really good answer there, and good explanation about styles, especially, and relationships are so important. Of course, he works for Learfield and Bleacher Report. He's got his Substack. It's Felder at Substack.com. You want to sign up for that. You get football. You get cooking videos. Right now, his vaunted banana bread recipe is up there step by step, the mixing bowl and everything. All right. So coaching carousel, we go from DeBoer to Alabama, then Washington's open, then Jedd Fisch decides to go north. First of all, do you like the choice by Jedd Fisch? Is Washington a much better program than Arizona?
Here's the thing. They're going to the Big Ten. They're going to the Big Ten, and the Big Ten money is much better than the Big 12 money. And that's the part, like, you got to strike with the iron's hot. I was talking to a couple of folks, and they were like, think about not Matt Rule. Matt Rule's at Nebraska now. Yep. Iowa State. And
Matt Campbell.
And he was a candidate for USC. And he said, no, I'm sticking out here. I think I can get something better, because I think ultimately he probably wanted an NFL job. And now, guess what? Whoo, boy, he is on no one's list right now. And that's the part where you got to strike while the iron's hot. So Jedd Fisch was like, they're going to the Big Ten. There's more money. There's going to be more money. I got 10 wins at Arizona. I'm not going to get 10 wins again at Arizona. I need to go now. And I think that he made a smart choice.
You know, outside of the top, say, 7 programs,
right?
Should fans be shocked when their coach leaves? Because Arizona fans are really pissed off at Jedd Fisch, and I don't understand why they don't. They don't get that there is no job that is an absolute home forever for most coaches.
Yeah, there's a handful of exceptions, right? Like, you can look at Kirk Ferentz. And he's happy where he's at. Absolutely. Fantastic. You can look at, but I don't think San Jose fans are upset with Brennan.
No, not at all. Because there's a reality to those fans. Yeah. They know where they came from. Yep. That's my other issue here. A lot of Arizona fans are mad about the hire of Brennan. And it's like, do a little research and understand the job he took. That place is so underfunded, and he won there.
Listen, it's the same thing with Mike McIntyre. They weren't upset when he left to go to Colorado. I understand it. And so there's folks who get it. There's folks that don't. There's folks that have an inflated sense of who they are. And that's the part that's been really interesting to me. Is what, I'll say it. Like, Brian Kelly leaving Notre Dame to go to LSU, it's a better job, man. Notre Dame's a perfect job. It's fantastic if that's what you want to do. But if you want to kick down doors, listen, you better bring a shotgun, and that's what LSU's got. So, he's got a better quarterback than he's ever had, right? And he got him from Arizona State. So, it's going to be really interesting to suss this all out, because Arizona just got a really good coach in Brennan. I love him. He is so good. I know you work in the Mountain West as well. He's a very good coach. I love watching him operate. And now you give him a little bit more money. Now we're going to have some fun. How close are they to being done with their facility, by the way?
They finished it. Oh, you're saying who, San Jose State or Arizona?
Arizona.
I don't know. I don't know about. Yeah. I know this because I was wondering about it too. Because that's why coaches leave sometimes, because we don't know about all the background stuff and the money hassles.
Right.
I do know the school in general, not the athletic department. The school in general is about $230 million in the hole. So that certainly can then kind of sprinkle down to football, and you're like, okay, we don't have the funding that we needed in the Pac-12, and we're not going to have it anytime soon in the Big 12.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see how that was. And I'm glad. I know that San Jose State finished theirs. That was a crazy season, though, watching tractors be because they couldn't set up the crow's nest on the other side because there was nothing there. So you just see tractors, and they tried to put the blue screen up, but that was crazy a couple of years ago. But no, I love the Brennan hire. I love the Fisch hire. I think Fisch is going to bring the thing is, Fisch is kind of starting from scratch, because Penix is going to the NFL. and Rome Dunze is going to the NFL, and I assume McMillan and Polk and those guys are all leaving. He's going to have to build it from scratch, which is what he did at Arizona too. And so he gets to put his own stamp on it. But I also think the same thing with DeBoer. DeBoer going to Alabama, to me, is a clear sign. And this is something that it's been a problem in the SEC for a long time. People chasing Saban. Now, Georgia got it right with Kirby Smart. But for every Kirby Smart, there are what? Derek Dooley, Jeremy Pruitt, Will Muschamp, Jimbo Fisher, all guys that have been fired. Mm-hmm. Will Muschamp got fired twice, didn't he? He got fired from Florida and from South Carolina. So we're going to count that as 5. And they keep chasing and I think Lane Kiffin is different because we've seen Lane Kiffin and Saban not be the same. We've seen them actually literally almost come to blows on the sidelines. So he's not like a little Saban devotee. He's a guy that Saban helped fix his career. But those other guys are kind of like just they're derivatives of the thing, right? It's like, do you want to like get an actual coconut or do you want some like processed coconut product? And what Alabama decided was we're not doing that at all. We're going to go to the Tedford tree. We're going to pick the fruit off the Tedford tree, and that fruit's Kalen DeBoer. And I'm super excited for him because I think he's a really good coach. And again, he's going to have to get these kids to trust him. He is going to have to speak their language. He is going to have to understand that, hey, man, I'm not giving you a chance to play football. You're giving me a chance to coach you. And I think that's the biggest difference of what he's walking into.
Let's close on this back to the West Coast for a second, just to follow up on San Jose State. Michael Felder's with us from Learfield. The list is kind of interesting for San Jose State. One of the names on the list is a guy who was kind of exiled, at least in one region of the country, and lost his job, and Nick Rolovich. That would be a nice get. That would be a nice get. I'll say this. He's not exactly a match with his mentality when it comes to COVID and that region. And I know people still love to debate COVID and mask and all that. You put that aside. It's 3-4 years ago now. I think that would be a good hire.
I see it. I don't think so. I just think that from their mentality, I don't know that they're going to make that jump, man. I really don't. Like, I think he can coach, but man, buddy, like they're not playing around with that. That's not
no, he's a handful.
Yeah, and you know what they don't want? They don't got big hands, so that's too much. So I look at this, and I've seen Paul Chris' name thrown around. I don't know if he's a scheme fit. He's
oh wow,
but I've seen his name thrown around a couple times. I've seen them. What is it? The Montana State head coach thrown around. And so it's going to be interesting. I really think that, what would be interesting to me is, do you want to hire a young guy or do you want to hire a guy that's got experience? And that's going to be the key, because the reality is, like, what do you want? You want Matt Wells to get back into the Mountain West? We've seen him have success.
Yeah.
We've seen him develop quarterbacks. Or do you want to stick with a guy like who is their running backs coach that they have there?
Alonzo Carter.
Yes, Alonzo Carter. There we go. Yep. Watching him, have you seen some of his pregame stuff?
Of course, yeah, of course. Well, he was a dancer with Hammer back in the day.
Yeah, this dude brings juice. He brings energy. Like, I love those videos of him. Like, is that what you want? So it's going to be really interesting to see how this takes shape. I mean, there's a ton of guys on staffs that, like, there's an opportunity for them. Somebody's going to get a great opportunity. And then the cool thing for me, and as someone who has a lot of friends that work in this field, the coolest thing for me is that next opportunity. Like, my man Joe Daly is he's an analyst at Kansas. He's an offensive analyst at Kansas. He wants to but he was an offensive coordinator at Buffalo, and he's ready to get back in the drive, ready to get back calling offense. And this is a job that could suit him. My man Chad Scott is at West Virginia. This is a chance that could suit him. I know we're not talking to NFL, but man, people are talking about my man, Ben Johnson. Ben Johnson was a walk-on at UNC, and Ben Johnson is the offensive coordinator for the Detroit Lions. And if they win another game, he might become a head coach. So I'm rooting for him. That's the guys that I'm always rooting for. I'm rooting for him. This guy he paid his dues. He spent a ton of time in Miami. He learned what he's doing. He's working for Dan Campbell now. So I got to give a shout out to my man, Ben Johnson.
There you go. Mike, we appreciate it. Good spot.
Sounds good. Thank you guys so much.